Welcome to Module 5 on Claude Code. And don't worry, if you've never touched code before, Claude is going to do it all for you off plain language prompts. You're going to be coding without writing a single line of code. You're sitting at your desk at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. 3 emails in your inbox. Each one a bank statement file from a different processor. Bank A sends a CSV with the date in column C, the account number in column A, and the amount in a column with no header. Bank B sends a pipe delimited file, with amounts formatted in parentheses for debits. Bank C sends an Excel with their logo taking up rows 1 through 6, and the actual balance data starting in row 7. You open each one. You copy columns into a staging sheet. You reformat dates. You rename headers to match your internal standard. You do this every single morning, and it takes an hour. And that's the problem that Claude Code solves. Claude Code is a version of Claude that can write code, run it, see the output, and iterate until the output is right. It does all this on its own. You don't write code. You describe the problem, and Claude Code takes it from there. Here's what makes that different from regular Claude chat. When you ask regular Claude a question, it answers. When you ask Claude Code a problem, it acts. It writes a script, it executes it, it reads the results. It decides what to do next. That's called being agentic. Agentic means the tool doesn't just respond to you. It takes actions independently to solve the problem. It's the difference between asking someone a question and asking someone to handle the task while you step away. For Treasury specifically, this matters because the problems that fit Claude Code's model are everywhere. File reformatting, threshold checks across dozens of accounts, interest accrual calculations, settlement matching, daily position reconciliation. These are all rule-based, repetitive, file-in, file-out problems. They're boring, but they're necessary. They're exactly the kind of work that Claude Code handles best. And the key insight is this. You don't need to understand the code Claude writes. You need to be able to describe the problem clearly. The analogy is that you're the analyst briefing a developer. Claude is the developer, except you don't need to file a ticket, wait 2 weeks in a queue, and sit through a requirements meeting. You describe it, Claude writes it. You can run it by the end of the session. What you do need is clarity. You need to know what the input file looks like, what columns it has, what format the data is in, what the output should contain, what columns should be there, what order, what rules apply, what should happen if something's missing or wrong. The more specific you are up front, the fewer rounds of back and forth you need. Now let's ground this in something real. The F9 Finance coffee shop gets daily bank files from its merchant processor. The file has the right data in it, account names, balances, dates, but the format isn't standardized. Sometimes it comes with an extra header row. Sometimes the date format changes between month, date, year to year, month, date. The columns aren't always named the same way. Claude Code can build a standardization script that reads the file, fixes all these variations automatically, and outputs a clean, consistent file. That script takes about 2 minutes to build with Claude Code. It takes about an hour to do if you're doing manually in a formula sheet. That's not a 58-minute productivity gain. That's 58 minutes you get back every single day. Now multiply that by 5 days a week. Multiply that by 50 weeks a year. That's Treasury work that disappears. The script runs once and the problem is solved. Where Claude Code fits is in the space between I have a repeatable file processing problem and I need to build this into my system. It's perfect for prototyping. It's perfect for one-off processing jobs. It's perfect for figuring out if a piece of logic works before you hand it to your IT team. It's not a production system. It's the fastest path from here's my problem to here's a working solution. Now in the next section, you'll learn how to describe a problem clearly enough that Claude Code can solve it the first time. And that's where the skill lives. The better you get at describing, the fewer loops you need. Let's head over there. The difference between a Claude Code session that produces a working script in 2 rounds and one that takes 10 rounds of back and forth almost always comes down to how you describe the problem at the start. Good descriptions are the difference between 30 minutes and 3 hours. Now, there are 4 questions that you need to answer before you even open Claude Code. If you can answer all 4 clearly, the script will be right. If you're fuzzy on any of them, well, then you expect to iterate. The first question is, what's the input? You need to describe the file type. Is it an Excel file, a CSV, a fixed width? Is it an Excel file, a CSV, a text file, a JSON export? And then you need to describe the relevant columns and what you're looking for. What are they roughly called? What do they contain? What are they looking for? How are amounts formatted? Are there any quirks? If the file is supposed to have a header row but sometimes doesn't, say that. If amounts sometimes have dollar signs and sometimes don't, say that. If possible, paste a sample of the actual data into your prompt. Showing 5 rows of real data is always faster than describing the structure for 10 minutes. The second question is, what's the output? Describe exactly what you want back. What column should be in the output file? What order should they be in? What format should dates be in? Should amounts be numbers or text? What file name should it have? Where should it save? If you want 3 different reports from one input file, we'll describe all 3. The more specific you are, the less back and forth happens. The third question is, what are the rules? This is where the logic lives. In a threshold check, the rule is any account with a balance below its minimum threshold should be flagged. Astoria Operating Checking has a minimum of 100,000. Hell's Kitchen has a minimum of 150. Lower Manhattan has a minimum of 200,000. Every rule that matters needed to be stated explicitly or given as an attachment. If interest accrues at 2.5% on reserve but 1.8% on savings accounts, say that or give an attachment. If you're matching settlements and a trade that hasn't settled in 5 business days gets flagged as an exception, say that. The script can't apply rules you didn't tell it about. The fourth question is, what should happen when something's wrong? If the file's missing, what does the script do? Does it exit with an error? Does it send an email? Does it create an empty report? If an expected column isn't there, does the script catch that or does it crash? If the date in the file doesn't match today's date, is that a problem? These edge cases aren't hypothetical. They happen regularly in Treasury operations. If you decide now what the behavior should be, the script handles them. If you don't, you'll discover the edge case at 3 a.m. when something breaks in production. Now, let's walk through each question applied to the coffee shop bank file standardization case. Input. The file is an Excel workbook. It has a sheet called balances. Columns are things like location, account, currency, and balance. The dates are embedded in a month, day, year format, and balances are numbers. Sometimes the file has a header row, sometimes it doesn't. The location names might have an extra space. I want you to output a clean CSV file with these columns: location, account, currency, balance, and process date. In that order. Balances should be numeric with no formatting. Process date should be year, month, date. The file should be saved as F9 finance _balances _standardized _today's date.csv. For rules, I want you to strip any leading or trailing spaces from location and account names. Reformat the date with the file name into year, month, day. Verify that all expected columns are present. For edge cases, if the file is missing, log an error and exit. If a column's missing, report which one and exit. If the file is empty, create an output file with headers only. Once you've answered all 4 questions, the prompt almost writes itself. You describe the input, you describe the output. You list the rules, you describe edge cases. You paste a sample of real data, you let Claude Code run with it. If Claude Code gets it wrong, don't start over. State what's wrong specifically. If Claude gets it wrong, don't start over. State what's wrong specifically. The script is outputting amounts in the original format. The commas and dollar signs are still there. Please strip formatting from the amount column so it outputs as a plain number. That specificity tells Claude exactly what to fix. It doesn't waste rounds trying to guess what you meant. The last thing you should do once the script works is ask Claude to add a comment block at the top explaining what it does, what the inputs and outputs are, and what rules it applies. That comment block is what the next person uses to understand the script 6 months later. It's also what you use when you open the script and don't remember why you wrote it the way you did. That documentation habit is what separates a one-off script from an actual tool. Now, you'll see this matters more in the next 2 sections when we actually build these scripts for the coffee shop. Bank file standardization is one of the most common first automations for Treasury teams. Every bank sends files differently. You need them all in the same format so you can actually read them. And this is that build. Here's the scenario. F9 Finance Coffee Shop receives daily balance reports from its bank processor. The file has the right data in it, but it doesn't have standardized column headers. The dates come in as month, date, year, and you need year, month, date for your downstream reports. The locations sometimes have extra spaces. The accounts are named inconsistently. The script we're about to build handles all of that in one shot. So let's open Claude Code, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how to describe this problem so Claude can solve it. So now, jumping back into the Claude desktop, we're going to come to our third and final section. We've gone through chat, we've gone through cowork, and now we're going to come to code. And unlike the last two, this one is going to look a little bit different. So first of all, you're going to have this chart up here talking about kind of all of the different sessions and coding you're doing. Down here, you're going to have this task bar that's going to look a little bit different, somewhat similar, but also different. And then here, instead of projects and scheduling and customize, you're going to have new session, routines, and customize. You will still have recents just like before, but it's generally going to look a little bit different. Now, there is a chance that when you open this up and try to run it, it's going to say that you need a Git environment, Git. Now, a lot of computers, I'd say probably 80%, it's just going to be on there. Git is a tool that essentially supports coding work. I could go into a lot more detail than that. Feel free to ask Claude to tell you all about Git, but for your purposes, just know we may need to have it. Now, if you do need to install it, I can't show you exactly the setup that's going to work for your computer because each computer may need a slightly different setup. What I'm going to show you is how to get help with it. So let's come over to chat for a minute, and we're going to get chat to help us out with this. I am trying to set up Claude Code inside the Claude desktop app, and it's telling me that I need a Git window. Help me install Git on my computer. I have a PC laptop running Windows 11. Walk me through step by step. All right, there's our prompt, and this is such a fantastic use of AI to walk you through these kind of things step by step, customized to your situation. Because I can show you a PC laptop running Windows 11, I can't show you other types of Windows, I can't show you Linux, I can't show you Mac, but Claude can. So to send this away, I'll show you what this looks like. It's really a simple process, and Claude's going to take you through every part of it step by step. So here comes our step-by-step. It's going to say step 1, download Git for Windows. So we can simply click this link. It's going to ask us for permission to go to the website. Here's Git for Windows, and in this case, it took me straight to Windows. I can download here, but here's Mac OS, here's Linux, and here's a really fancy coding version that I would not recommend you try. But it's going to take you there. We would go back to our steps, so we need to run the installer, walk through the installer. So these are all the kind of different pieces and parts you need to adjust. You know, a year ago, this would have been really confusing and you would have had to go Google the crap out of every single step. It's going to tell you everything you need to do. It's going to finish. You're going to be able to verify that Git is installed, ready to go. You will have to restart the Claude desktop app so that it can find Git, but then you're all set. And again, Claude will give you the instructions customized to your specific machine. Mac will be different than Windows, and it's going to walk you through all of that. Even Windows 10 will be different than 11. And this is a really great use of AI. Anytime you get stuck on something, pop it in Claude, ask it to walk you through. So now with Git installed, there's really no additional setup. Now, one other thing I do want to mention is that if you're looking at other online resources, even some of my older resources, you might see mention of Claude Code being run out of the terminal, not out of the desktop app. And that was the original way of running Claude Code, was downloading it and working inside the coding terminal. So this is an example of the terminal. This is what it looks like on Windows. It's a little bit different looking on a Mac, but this is essentially the way the computers used to work before these really nice graphical user interfaces that we use today. And it's just a way of talking to the computer in coding language instead of talking to the computer in plain language. And again, you used to run Claude through this. You may see that online. Don't worry about that. You do not need to open terminal now to run Claude. You can use Claude Code right inside the desktop app. The functionality is very similar. It's just a lot easier to use in the desktop app, and it doesn't have that more intimidating feel of working in the coding terminal. So now to walk you through what's up here, so new session, that's obviously where we'll start our project. Routines, just like Cowork allows scheduling, routines allows you to create templates that run different coding things on a daily or weekly or hourly basis, whatever you need. And that's where you can create routines here. We won't go into that in this course, just know it's available. Customize is going to look very similar to Cowork and Chat. You can connect apps, create skills, browse plugins, essentially level up Claude. You know, a lot of times I've mentioned Claude Code will tend to write in Python. You could bring in skills to really train it up in other languages, should you so choose. Then if we go under more, you've also got dispatch. That's in test mode, just like in Cowork, where you can kick things off from your phone. And then, of course, you can customize the sidebar and pin projects that you do a lot. Now, the chat window, that's going to operate just like the chat window in chat or in Cowork, but we're going to also want to select a folder. Now, there's not projects like we have in Cowork, but you do still select a folder. Now, you can run locally or online. I definitely recommend, as you're learning, just stay local. Don't do anything else fancy with working online, but do know the options are there if you want to work and code in a cloud environment. We're going to stay local, and then we're going to select a folder. So this is going to be very similar to how we set up a project in Cowork. So I can go here to open folder and so here in our folders, just like I showed you, I have a Claude Cowork folder, I've got a Claude Code folder. And this is the only folder that I let Claude Code work in, just like with Cowork for security reasons and safety and just making sure it doesn't go crazy. Now in here, I've already set up the folder we're going to work with, and that's going to be the Treasury folder. Now I'm going to select this folder, and then I'll go ahead and show you what's inside of it. So to show you the folder, I've got 2 days of bank data, I've got our investment policy, and I've got our thresholds, and this is the entire scope of where Claude Code can operate. So with our folder selected, just to show you a couple of other options. So if I come down to this accept edits, very similar to Cowork, where we said, do we want us to ask before it does anything, start to write or edit files? We can do that. We can say always ask permissions. We can say I'll generally accept edits. Just ask me before you do really crazy coding processes. We can go to plan mode, or if we're feeling really, really adventurous, we can bypass permissions entirely. Definitely don't recommend that, especially as you're working with this. It's definitely an advanced feature. Now you can come over to a transcript view. This will allow you to look at kind of more in depth as Claude's working through it. You can see the thinking, you can see the verbose. I always just leave this on normal. You can come over here, you can add files, folders, you can put in commands, connectors, plugins, all that's available. And just like in Cowork and chat, you can sit here to record a prompt. I will note it can be a little bit slower in Claude Code. I'm not exactly sure why, but just do note sometimes it is faster in here to type. And then over here, you can select the model. Now for a lot of coding, Opus is definitely going to be what you want. But as you practice and are not trying to build production code, I would stay in Sonnet. And that's because Opus can really, really chew through credits and tokens. And I want to make sure you're practicing on something that is a little bit cheaper while you figure out the skills. So now that that's all in place, let's go ahead and put our prompt in. And if you recall, what we're going to do for this one is we're going to standardize and normalize our data files. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come down, we're going to put in our prompt. I need your help standardizing bank data files. Inside this folder, you're going to find 2 days of bank data. I want you to create a standardization process that cleans the data and puts it into a format easily digestible by an AI tool. Then I want you to reference the thresholds file, and in the standardized format, pull in the appropriate threshold for each account. Ask me any questions that you have to ensure the best possible coding sequence. Include guardrails and fallback procedures. If data or columns are missing, make sure to have something in the script that will stop if the issue is severe or flag if the issue is minor. So there's our prompt, kind of covering off the guardrail piece, what we're looking for. This is supposed to go in and just clean the data. If for some reason all the values are missing, we would want it to stop. If for some reason, some of the less important column, kind of a helper column's missing, we would want it to just let us know. But we're going to send this away and we're going to let Claude work through it. All right, so we'll go ahead and let Claude do its magic. Now, as we go through this, I want you to watch for something that's going to come back, and that's going to be approvals. So Claude Code is very cautious with the approvals, especially as we've set it, where it will accept code edits, but before it writes or deletes or adjusts or creates, it's going to ask us for permission. And you'll see you always have control over what Claude Code's doing. And just like I showed you at the top of this lesson, if you have a question about what it's doing and want to understand more, just copy and paste it into chat, just like we did with our question about Git, and have it help you there. Right now, you'll see what it's doing is it's exploring the folder, it's reading the Excel files to understand the structure, and then it's going to see if it has any questions for us. So now here's a really good example of it asking for approval. So it didn't have any questions for us. It read the files, no questions. It's starting to build what it needs. And now it's down here asking us for permission to run the pipeline. Now the options here, we can deny it or hit escape. We can allow it once, or we can always allow this exact process to run. Now, in this case, what this is doing is just running the Python code that it needs to standardize, and that's exactly what we're coding. So we're going to give it always allow permission, and it won't ask us again for this exact task, but it will ask us for even related tasks just to make sure we're being cautious. So we'll go ahead and we'll allow that, and then it's going to go ahead and keep working through this. Now you'll see what's really cool about Claude Code. Remember we talked about this being agentic? You'll see here, there's a fix. So it created a file and then it tested it and it saw there was an issue. It edited it, it saw that there was another issue coming back. It edited it again. It found another issue, it edited it again, so it's continuing to work through the issues without you having to. It's running code, it's testing the impact of the code, and then it's fixing it on its own without you having to tell it. And you'll see it just keeps going through all of the additional issues it's finding. It thinks it's running through its final It thinks it's going through its final clean run. If it's not clean, it will go back and edit it again. Also note that down here, it's tracking the time and the number of tokens. As I said that, here comes up another request. Can we print standardized balance outputs? Again, any questions on this, just go ahead and pop it in Claude and we'll be happy to tell you. We'll go ahead and allow this. All right, and here we go. So the pipeline is working. It built this file. So it built this Python script to standardize data. Here's the output. So it did standardize the balances. It did standardize the transactions. And then it's got this log of every issue that it found. Here's the guardrail. So if they're fatal, there's no file, something really big, the values are missing, it's fatal. If there's an error, it'll let us know. It'll keep processing, but it will skip. And if it's a warning, negative balances, null values, no threshold, it's going to flag it, but it will keep processing. And it did catch that negative balance that we have on day 2, and it flagged it for us. So we can go to our folder. We could also just click right here, but we'll go to our folder. So inside our Claude Code, you'll see here's the Python script, here's the output, all right, and there's all of our standardized balances and all of the things. Let's go ahead and open one up just so you can see what this looks like. And here's an example of the standardized data all cleaned up. This was all from day 1, day 2. These were all the individual accounts, and this was the threshold merged in. And all of this, again, done automatically with Python. So those are the balances. There's also transactions in there. We can open up one of these files just to show you what that looks like. So here's all of our transaction data. Excellent. And then here is the pipeline. All right, and here is the pipeline. That is fantastic. Now, a couple of things we could do as we want to reiterate this. So first of all, if you click on this Python file, it's going to give you this because you need to run Python scripts in terminal, so you're not going to be able to kick it off yourself. The other thing you'll notice is it left its test files in here, and that's definitely not something we want to have happen. So we can come back and we can reiterate simply by prompting back in, just like we do with chat or cowork. I need to make 2 changes to the code. First of all, I want you to create a button I can click to run the Python so I don't have to send users to terminal to run it manually. I also want you to clear out any interim or non-final files so that there's only 1 copy of the clean data for each day. You should also take any older versions of the data from prior days and move them into an archive folder inside Outputs folder. All right, so we'll go ahead and send that off, and this is supposed to work on exactly the same code, do the work for us. It's asking us if we trust this workspace. That is indeed where we're asking it to work, but because we're going to edit existing files and give it permission to delete, we'll go ahead and trust the workspace. And now Claude Code will get running on that for us. All right, you'll see that agentic workflow working. It found the 2 changes, a graphic user interface launcher, and then a file management to kind of clean things out. It's planning what it's going to do, and then it's going to go through and start working on it. You'll see it's actually going to make both changes in parallel. So it's editing the Python and it's also creating the launcher. Having the GUI launcher is a really cool trick. It makes this a lot more approachable. It doesn't have that kind of, scary coding feel, and just a lot more natural way to work with these scripts. Now here, Claude's asking us to run a list output and archive folder contents. That's just going to tell us what's in the folders. We'll go ahead and allow that. This is it just checking to make sure that it's created all the files needed. Now you'll see that it's going to test the GUI launcher. We will allow that. This is just going to really run the Python script without having to go to terminal. You'll see it tested everything. Everything is working. And here's the changes. So for the GUI launcher, it's going to run our pipeline for us. And then file management, it's changed it so everything will be clean, 1 file per day, and it's going to archive everything else. So if we come back to our folder and we go to output, so here's our archive. All the old files are here. The new clean files by day are right here with a consistent format, and everything old will be moved out. And then if we come and hit our run pipeline, instead of going to the window, this cool little GUI is going to open. You could hit this run pipeline button and it's just going to run for you. It's really just kicking off this Python script from before, but without having to go to the terminal. So that's exactly what it looks like to write code in Claude Code and then to even reiterate code as you go. Now here's the key moment. I didn't write code, I described a problem. Claude Code turned that description into a working script, ran it against real data, and produced a usable output file. That script's now saved. The next time you get a file with the same structure, you run the same script. Done. In a real production scenario, you can hand this to IT and say, I need this to run every morning at 6 a.m., save the output to our shared drive. But before you do that, you know it works. You've tested it. You've seen the output. That's leverage you didn't have before. Now let's take this one step further. You've got clean, standardized data. The next question is, what's wrong with it? Well, that's the exception flagging build in the next lesson. We're going to use this same data and layer rules on top of it to surface the accounts that need attention. Now, this is where the automation earns its keep. Not reformatting, flagging. Identifying the accounts that have reached a threshold and surfacing them in a report that doesn't require anyone to manually scan 40 rows of data, and then try to remember which accounts are supposed to have which minimums. It's January 14th. The daily balance file comes in. You run the standardization script from the last lesson. The data's clean. You open the output to review it. You're scanning through the locations. Astoria looks okay. Hell's Kitchen looks okay. And then you get to Astoria operating checking again. Negative $41,000, and that's not okay. Astoria has a minimum threshold of $100,000. That negative balance means it's not only short, it's $141,000 below where it should be. And that's a critical exception. Under normal operations, a Treasury analyst spots this during the morning review. Maybe it gets caught, maybe it doesn't, and the account stays negative for 3 hours till someone notices and things start bouncing. This automation spots it the moment the file arrives. So let's build Claude Code and go through and build this exception flagging app. I'm going to start a fresh session and walk through how to describe the rules. Now, with that in place, we're going to start a new session and let's get really fancy just to show you how powerful this tool can be. So I've got my F9 Finance Treasury folder. It's still selected. And now let's go ahead and build an entire app right in Claude Code. And this is going to be our exceptions tracker taken to the next level. So let's go ahead and watch this. I need your help building an app to help support the F9 Finance Treasury team. I need this app to review cash balance exceptions. All of the data you need will be in this folder. Now there's a file script cleaning this up that's already flagging the exceptions in the file. But what I want this app to do is to give someone the ability to see the exceptions and then dynamically adjust balances and move cash between accounts to figure out how to clear it and create a live cash plan for the day. So it's taking the exceptions one step further and actually letting the user create a plan with the live bank data to solve any exceptions. So we're going to create an app that's actually going to let us create and test new cash plans. And this is going to be a live application that we'll be able to work with and share with others on the team. Now this build will take a little bit longer, so I'll check in with you as interesting things are happening, but we're going to watch in theory, under 15 to 20 minutes, an entire application be built. And you'll see Claude Code's getting to work. It's exploring what's going on. It's running an agent through the folder to understand the files, to look at the exceptions, to look at the thresholds, all the information we've given it. And then it may have some questions for us, or it may just start diving in to build the app. All right, so here's our first one. It wants to run some processes to start doing Python, to bring in some libraries to support Python. We will, of course, allow that because that's exactly what we're looking for. Now we have another process to run, so we can just keep allowing these. When it's a different process, it's going to come back and ask for permission to run. Because I'm clicking always allow, if it needs to do the same thing, it's just going to run it for us. So now there's a lot going on here with Claude. So it's decided it's going to build a Streamlit web app. We're going to have an exception dashboard. We're going to have a cache planner, and then there's going to be an export that allows you to export your plan to CSV so everyone can work with it. Now it dove right into building, didn't have any questions for us. It's starting to build the app. It looked for Streamlit, it didn't find it, so it needed to install it. But now it's created the launcher, and then it's verifying it launches. But to do that, we need to give permission. So it really just dove right into build. It even grabbed the software it needed to do so, and Claude is just going to town. I have another one here for UTF-8 encoding. We'll go ahead and allow that. Again, any questions you have. I'll sound like a broken record, but just ask Claude. You can copy and paste any of these asks into Claude Chat. It's going to tell you exactly what's going on. So you'll see now it's testing the app, it's running it, it's saying the app is live and it's responding. It's going to save what we built and then give us a summary of its work. So building it, planning the build, testing, all of it done with just plain language prompts. All right, and Claude is already done. So I was expecting this to be more 15 to 20 minutes for a full app. It actually did it in 7 minutes. So we've got the entire application. We've got a launcher right here that we can click on, and it tells us how to use it. So run our pipeline with the clean data, and then it's going to build the app. So let's go check this out. So we're going to come to our folder here. We're going to look for the Treasury app. So we'll go ahead and launch that. The actual app is this script down here. It's going to open up for us right in our browser. And here is our Treasury cache planner. So here's we're saying we have one exception. There's one breach we have to resolve. So again, instead of just a report, we're actually getting content we can work with. Now you'll see right here, there's a little bit of an issue, and this is a great thing for us to reiterate. That tends to happen. I mean, we just coded an entire app, but here's where we can plan out transfers. So I can see we've got this Astoria operating checking issue. So what I would do is I'd go to Astoria Reserve Savings, and I would transfer to Astoria operating checking. I think this is what this wants us to do here. Let's look for what our balance is. All right, 520,000. We need to get this 141,000 up. So let's go ahead and just give it 200,000, and we can add in that transfer. And you'll see as we did that, now we're saying it automatically updated. The Astoria Reserve Savings is 320,000. It is short of our minimum. Obviously, that's better than having the checking short. And now all of our accounts are resolved. And what's really cool is it's saying there was one original exception, but everything has been resolved. And now the only remaining shortfall is 80,000. This is cool. But now let's go see if we can fix this issue. So now a really cool thing you can do is you can just snip images in, and you can say, hey, I'm seeing this issue. Could you help me out? We'll go ahead. We will copy this. We'll come back to Claude Code. I am seeing this error where the app is showing code instead of showing a user interface. All of the functionality is working. This seems to just be a display issue. So there's that. We'll go ahead and we'll paste in our image. There it is. So Claude Code can see exactly what we're talking about. Now I'm going to close out the application just to make sure if it has to do any work on it. We'll go ahead and send this away, and then we'll let Claude Code go in and make any changes it needs to. Usually in this case, because we're overriding existing scripts and working with Python, it will usually ask for permission, but we'll see what it needs to do. So Claude Code went in and researched the issue off the information I gave it, as well as the screenshot. It found the issue. It looks like it was with a markdown call. Again, any questions, just go ahead and ask Claude Claude chat what's going on. It's going right in to edit the app. It figured out a solve. Now it's going in and testing it to make sure the solve worked. It found a few more things that need to tweak with the markdowns and with the coding. It's going to adjust all those. Once it runs the full script with no errors, then it will let us know it's done, let us know what it changed, and then we can go back and test again. And you'll see it's just going right in and editing the script as it goes, and then testing it once it does the initial edit. All right, so Claude Code is coming back. It ran a syntax check. Everything is good to go. The fix is in place. It explains what was wrong, and then it explains the fix. Now, it's always good as you want to learn this stuff to kind of figure out what's going on, but no need to know kind of the individual ins and outs. That's exactly why Claude's here. Let's go back and test our app, see if it's working. I mean, I was already really impressed by the functionality, but let's see if we got all of the formatting issues fixed. All right, and indeed we did. So that entire formatting issue we were having is gone. We've still got the error because we had the entire app rebuilt. Now, if I come back here, I go to our reserve, I come to our operating check, and let's make sure this all works. I'll move $200,000. All right, so now that's underfunded. And then we'll see if there's anywhere else we can kind of find some money to move over. Let's see, Hell's Kitchen has a lot of extra money. Lower Manhattan's a little bit tighter. So let's move the $80,000 from our Hell's Kitchen reserve. Let's move that over to our Astoria reserve. Put $80,000 just to show that this works with multiple levels. All right, and now we have no active exceptions. Everything is in line. Then we can just click this download cash plan. Wow, this is cool. And we did all that in 7 minutes and then one change. All right, and then here's our cash plan. So then this is what you would give to the team that actually needs to initiate the transfers, and you are good to go. How cool is that? And that's the report, one line, all the information you need. You didn't have to scan through all 12 accounts manually. You didn't have to remember which locations have which minimums. The script did the work. It surfaced the issue and it did it in milliseconds. Now think about what happens when this script is running in the real world. The bank file arrives at 6 a.m. The script runs automatically. It generates the exceptions report. The report lands in your inbox or your dashboard. By 6:15 a.m., you know that Astoria is short and you know by how much. That's a 3-hour head start compared to manually reviewing it at 9 a.m. With a negative balance, that head start means you can initiate a transfer or a sweep from reserve before the opening bells and settle the issue before business hours. Without it, well, you're playing catch-up all day. Now, some common questions I get on Claude Code. Does the code disappear after the session ends? No, and that's the great thing. Claude Code saves the script and all outputs. You can access them in the same session. You can also download the script and use it again with new data in the future. Now, what language does Claude Code write in? Typically Python. Python is general purpose, it's readable, and it doesn't require compilation. If you need a different language, though, you can certainly request it in your prompt. Can I reuse these scripts on day 3, day 4, day 5? Yes, as long as you're getting similar input files. The script works with any new data. Just upload a new file and run the script again. What do I do if the input file format changes? Well, if Bank A changes their file format or adds a new column, just describe the change to Claude Code and iterate the script once to handle the new format. Then it works again. What happens if I run the exception flagging script and there are no exceptions? Well, in that case, the script still creates the output file with the summary row showing 0 exceptions found. Nothing is flagged, the report is clean, and that's good news. This script is the core of Build 2 in Module 6. In Module 6, instead of running the script manually whenever you want, and it then runs it automatically when a new file arrives. The automation's already half built, you've got the logic, you've tested it, the workflow just schedules it. And that's the power of knowing how to build these scripts fast. You're not learning to code, you're learning to turn problems into instructions that code can follow. And in Module 6, those instructions get scheduled and automated completely. Claude Code is not a production system. It's the fastest path from I have a file and a problem to I have a working script. And those are different things. Knowing the difference protects you from making a choice that sounds good now and causes problems later. Claude Code fits in specific situations. One-off processing tasks, internal use scripts no one else depends on. Prototyping logic before you hand it to IT. Personal automation of repetitive work. If you process the same file format every morning and spend 30 minutes on it, Claude Code can help you eliminate that 30 minutes. If you get an unusual file that needs cleanup and you need it done today, Claude Code solves it in an hour instead of a week. If you have an idea for a calculation and you want to test whether the logic is right before you propose building it in your system, Claude Code lets you prototype it. But Claude Code doesn't fit when the script is going to live in a production system that IT owns, when it touches a system of record, when it will be maintained by someone who wasn't in the room when it was built without proper documentation, or when it processes financial data that goes into audited reports without a human review boundary. Here's the boundary. If it's your script for your work, Claude Code is great. If it's going to run without human review, if multiple people depend on it, if it touches something audited, well, that's an IT conversation. Bring the script Claude built, bring the documentation, bring the test results. The developer's job gets a lot shorter when you show up with a prototype instead of a requirement. Now, documentation is not optional. If you build a script and don't document it, you've created a dependency that only you can maintain. Nobody else can read it, nobody else can fix it, nobody else can improve it. Ask Claude to write a one-page README explaining what the script does, what the inputs are, what the outputs are, and what the rules it applies. Once that exists, the script stops being a black box. It becomes a tool someone else can use. So now with that, you've seen the full flow. You can describe a problem, Claude Code builds a script, you test it, you iterate if needed, you document it. That script solves a problem that was costing you time every single day. Now, Module 6 is where everything connects. The prompting for Module 1, the projects for Module 2, the artifacts for Module 3, the research and collaboration for Module 4, and the code scripts you've built here in Module 5. All of it runs inside end-to-end automations on a schedule. That's the last mile. That's where this stops being something you run manually and becomes something that just works.